During the Trump era, the U.S. imposed high tariffs on Chinese products. In other words, this meant that every Chinese product coming to the U.S. had to pay high taxes. Hence, the U.S. wanted to hurt China's exports since manufacturers won't buy expensive products. After Trump, Biden chose to keep high tariffs intact, which are now backfiring. You see, the U.S. manufacturers need products coming from China to produce. They could pay high prices for a year or two, not permanently. But since tariffs are high, they cannot import, costing them profits and incurring losses. And now, the latest reports say that these American manufacturers are leaving the U.S. and perhaps eyeing settling in China. How did that happen, and how will it cost the U.S.? Hundreds of billions of dollars, changing the entire trade war landscape. Welcome back to another exciting episode of our channel. Innovation Diary brings you China's innovation stories, projects, and growing influence in different parts of the world. If you are new to the channel and enjoy learning about fast-paced modernity, especially China's development and growing power, you will definitely find our videos intriguing. In this video, we will explain how high tariffs on Chinese products are backfiring, forcing American companies to ditch the U.S. and set up factories in China. Let's get started. The case of Misco, an American audio speaker manufacturer, sheds light on the complexities and unintended consequences of U.S. import tariffs on Chinese goods. Instead of showing any signs of pain on Chinese products, this actually shows us the other side of the coin, how the U.S. businesses are struggling. Since China offers a robust supply chain not only for imports but also for exports, U.S. companies need China. They want raw materials found nowhere else from China and Chinese markets, which offer the world's largest demand. Misco has a history of being a family-owned business that resisted the trend of relocating to China for cheaper labor and lower costs. No matter what the U.S. government threw at it, Misco bore the cost. However, now things have gone too far. Yet Misco is not alone. Hundreds of businesses in the U.S. are feeling the same pain as this speaker-making company. For Misco, which is highly dependent on Chinese products coming from China as tariffs escalated, the company faced competitive challenges. The significant disparity in tariff rates, with components from China taxed at 25% compared to 7.5% for finished speakers, made it financially advantageous to import rather than produce domestically. In other words, these tariffs made domestic production in the U.S. more difficult than importing finished products from China. As in the case of Misco, if it wanted to produce in the U.S., it had to pay the heavy costs. However, for people looking to buy Chinese speakers, they could get them by paying lower taxes. That's when we know how irrational and sometimes idiotic policies the U.S. makes for its companies and citizens. You see, the original intent of tariffs was to protect American industry, but in this case, they had the unintended consequence of reducing competitiveness. Despite passing on some costs to customers, Misco ultimately decided to shift more of its production to China, an ironic outcome of the tariff policy. But how have companies like Misco reached such conditions? Well, the background of U.S.-China trade tensions, characterized by multiple tariff tranches under former President Donald Trump's administration, provides context. While Phase 1 of the U.S.-China trade deal offered some relief, reducing tariffs on certain electronics, including speakers, from 15% to 7.5%, it left List 3 tariffs, which encompass speaker components, unchanged at 25%. Before we continue further, tell us, are you enjoying the video? If yes, please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel for more videos about China's development, power, and influence on the world. Let's continue now. The Trump administration was putting high tariffs reaching as much as 25% on various Chinese goods worth hundreds of billions of dollars. Perhaps the intent was to squeeze Chinese products and extract from them. But surprisingly, the U.S. policymakers forgot that those high taxes would be passed to the U.S. companies importing Chinese products and the consumers. When Joe Biden came to office, he largely maintained the tariffs implemented by the previous administration under President Trump, and this further exacerbated the situation. Many U.S. companies had expected Biden would remove the high tariffs and usher in new policies to help the companies come out of the decline. But this wasn't the case. Since May of the previous year, the Office of the U.S. Trade Representative has been conducting a comprehensive review of the tariffs' necessity and impact. This review, expected to be concluded by autumn, reflects an effort to evaluate the implications of these tariffs on various sectors of the U.S. economy. However, Perhaps they don't want to see how the U.S. manufacturers are struggling. It's quite difficult to grasp what this comprehensive review focused on, given U.S. companies are feeling the pain and thinking of leaving the U.S. Back in 2019, more than 50 companies shifted abroad. It's because 66.4% of U.S. imports from China are subject to high tariffs, and most of them are used for domestic production in the U.S. This forced the U.S. Senate Finance Committee in July to take matters into their hands and inquire about the insane policy being implemented. Yet, in response, U.S. Trade Representative Katherine Tai's office said that the existing tariff structure has strategic alignment with both the U.S. economy's sectors and the goal of boosting domestic manufacturing. There are two possibilities for this response. Either the U.S. Trade Representative thinks the Senate committee is incompetent to know the reality, or the U.S. manufacturers are lying. But there can be good news for the U.S. manufacturers. Some of the products have been excluded from the tariff list, and this has prompted Americans for Free Trade, a coalition comprising 170 trade associations, to call for the timely continuation of existing exclusions. Established in 2018, the coalition consists of stakeholders, including manufacturers, farmers, retailers, technology companies, and more. They want the U.S. government to remove tariffs on Chinese products that are directly used in domestic manufacturing. This coalition's open letter to the U.S. Trade Representative, released on July 27th, underlines the significant financial impact of tariffs on American importers, exceeding $183 billion over the past 5 years. The coalition argues that last-minute decisions on exclusions by the USTR have undermined the administration's efforts to ensure supply chain resilience. It also emphasizes the ongoing challenges faced by American families, workers, and businesses, asserting that high tariffs must be removed. The manufacturing sector in the United States is currently facing significant challenges, which have implications for those advocating for increased domestic production. Data from the Institute for Supply Management, a nonprofit industry organization, paints a concerning picture. It reported that American manufacturing activity contracted for the 9th consecutive month in July. It should be noted that his extended period of decline is the longest since the global financial crisis of 2007 and 2008. Furthermore, U.S. factory employment hit a 3-year low in July. Struggling businesses, grappling with the economic challenges compounded by tariffs and the ongoing pandemic, have been forced to reduce their workforce to remain financially viable. This is a concerning trend that impacts livelihoods across various industries. In response to these challenges, the Americans for Free Trade Association says that the tariffs imposed as part of the U.S.-China trade dispute have had a detrimental effect on domestic manufacturing. This is evidenced by the experiences of companies like Misco, which felt punished for producing goods in the U.S. due to the tariffs. The coalition also highlighted the case of an IT firm, burdened by tariffs on parts and components listed under List 3 and 4A, which claimed to have paid over $350 million annually. Despite numerous attempts to secure exclusions and efforts to reconfigure its supply chain and reduce costs, this firm is now contemplating relocating its manufacturing to Mexico. This potential move puts 1,300 American jobs at risk. But guess what? Despite all this, the U.S. government is in no mood to remove high tariffs. This will create an ideal ground for U.S. companies to exist in the U.S. and set up factories in China. Earlier, requests for product exclusion from companies like Misco were denied during the Trump administration, without clear explanations, leading to frustrations among manufacturers. The same is being done now. Various analysts have deemed these U.S. moves as self-destructive. A report by Clark Packard and Scott Lincecum, scholars at the Cato Institute, a prominent Washington-based think tank, described tariffs and domestic subsidies as insufficient tools to effectively compete with China in the 21st century. Moody's Analytics estimated that the U.S.-China trade war resulted in the loss of approximately 300,000 American jobs. Additionally, a study by the New York Federal Reserve suggested that the tariffs led to around $1.7 trillion in lost market capitalization for firms due to investment slowdowns. We would like to take a moment to appreciate you all for commenting and sharing your opinions. Your insights always impress us. Now tell us, isn't it true the U.S. is facing more losses in the trade war than it would if it allowed Chinese products to keep coming to the U.S.? Do you think more and more American companies will leave the U.S. and establish Factories in China, increasing investments? Let us know your